Welcome back. Today we are playing out the Jaguar IS mid, because it is hella mid. The Jaguar IS mid is basically the Jaguar GR1A at 10.3, except it's now 11.0. What are the main differences? Well, the engines are a little bit more powerful, it loses a gun, and it gets Magic 2s. And Magic 2s are actually going to be changed in the next major update. The low speed maneuverability, or also known as the launch maneuverability, is going to get a major increase. I'll show you on the screen just how big the change actually is. Thank you, Jake, for providing us with the comparison. The Magic 2s make this thing actually kind of bearable. They have IRCCM, and because of that they are going to be ignoring a lot of flares if your opponent doesn't flare properly, like this F-14 does. And that's really your crutch, and you have to play around this, and I kind of advise you to get a medium amount of altitude and try to drop in behind people. Now the issue is that at 11.0 you are going to be seeing 12.0 essentially every match. Now the 11.0 matchmaker is not very forgiving. If you get up tiered, you are going to be paired against F-16s, MiG-29s, and really I can already stop there because those things are going to be absolutely clubbing you. You also have a plethora of MiG-23 MLDs, which also just kick your shit in. Overall in RRB, this thing is really just not it. You do have slightly better acceleration than the GR1A, but we are talking about 2 seconds quicker to Mach. This is a difference so small it might as well be a testing error, so take it with a grain of salt. And that kind of difference is really not noticeable. When we are just flying it out, if I don't do any testing and I just kind of go by feel, I really don't notice a difference between this thing and the GR1A. Which is a bit of an issue considering 10.3 is pretty forgiving, and overall I had a pretty damn good experience in that thing. I made a video on that about 2 weeks ago, if you care to check it out, and you'll see that I'm actually somewhat competitive. Now sure, I'm fighting F5Es most of the time, and they are very annoying to fight. Luckily, most of the F5Es and the F5Cs are not the best pilots in the game, so you can still reverse them, you can still fight them, and with this thing it really is no different. So if you are wondering what it's like to get down tiers in this thing, I highly advise you to just check out the other video, because this thing is basically the exact same, other than the fact that the Magic 2s absolutely bully the ever-living shit out of everyone that gets up-tiered into it, because most people at 10.0 have no idea how IRCCM works, so it makes for some pretty goofy kills where you basically get a free kill, since the enemy has no idea how to flare your missile. The issue is, for that you need to actually be able to get on the 6 of people, because the flare resistance of course from the side and the front isn't anywhere near as powerful, and it's not an R73 that you could just bend around the corner just after launching it with your HMD. Of course the low speed maneuverability will become better, but it's still not going to be a thrust vectoring R73 that you can basically shoot off bore side. And right here I want to show you just how futile it is. Yes, I'm being absolutely ran down by an entire train of people that just got done with your mum. However, it really isn't that great to play. You just run out of energy and you don't have the trust to get out of the situation. Now luckily the F4S doesn't flare in the head-on, the MLD slams into the ground, and now I only have to deal with the second Bukaki party. So we go into the terrain, we dodge some missiles, guy on the right, 2 guys on the left, we go up over the noses, but I can already hear you saying, but it's a ground pounder, it's not an air-to-air fighter, you are playing it wrong. And yes, you are correct, but that's what we do on the channel. So to kind of give you an idea what this thing has, it does have a better targeting pod. It gets to lightning too, which is fantastic. You also have some dumb bombs, and you can carry 3 Mark 13 guided bombs, and that's really it. And I mean, if you look at the GR1A that we have over here, I mean overall it's basically the same thing. Yes, the targeting pod is a little bit better. Yes, you get an extra bomb, but we are talking about a 0.7 BR increase, and with the Jaguar IS you are gonna be running into goddamn pansiers. You know, the absolute fuck you machine that we have at 11.7. Don't recommend it. Now, as I said, the engines are slightly different. Now you can see here that it's 2300 kilogram force on the off afterburner, and we have the 3630 on afterburner. Now then the thing is that when we go to the actual GR1A that we have over here, you'll see that it's actually a sizable difference. It's about 300 kilogram force. However, as I just said, it translates into a whole ass 2 seconds to Mach. So I set both of the planes next to each other at Mach, we both throttle up, and the first one to reach Mach wins. Now, the IS wins by a 2 second margin. which is really nothing considering most of it you make up at super low speed because it goes about 400 kilometers an hour, while the GR1A goes 380 kilometers an hour. Yes, I know, absolutely stellar difference. At those kind of speeds you don't want to be with a Jaguar anyway, so you really are not going to be noticing basically anything when it comes to the flight performance, which is a damn shame. If this thing had pretty damn good engines, it might actually be able to play a bit like the JH7 does. If you've flown this thing, you know how much of a menace this thing is in the dogfight, but you can tell, yeah, the thrust of this thing is absolutely obscene. And I call this thing the Jaguar with actual engines. And that's essentially what it is. But enough of that. If you're curious, of course, we have a video on that as well, but let's get right back to the gameplay. As I said, it's a good thing to have a little bit of altitude, and this was actually the first game I did in the plane. So we fly up over the enemies, they are all tangled up with my friendlies, and because this is my own matchmaker BR, I'm not gonna be challenged by too many pulse Doppler radars. And I see a J7E, and the J7E is going to absolutely rinse my ass. So I dive on his 6, I wait for the pre-flare, and the second I see no flares coming out, I'll lock him up, we launch the missile, and if the missile is in the air for plenty of time, which is mostly just under a second, the FOV narrows down, they get about a 0.75 degree of FOV, which is absolutely nothing. And if they don't put a flare in between the seeker head and their engine, well then you're about to get a 3-pointer home run in the corner of the goal. So you want to make sure that you just kind of wait for people to stop pre-flaring, or you kind of try to shove it in between the flare pops, and if you get the missile off directly locked onto them, most of the time the missile will do its work and it will just cancel them directly out of the air, which is kind of funny. At this BR, most people are not familiar with IRCCM missiles, and they definitely don't expect it from a Jaguar. Most people are expecting, well, AIM-9Gs, which are pretty easy to flare, so if they try to just pop one, well, they are probably going to die. I was thinking about pitching up for the Su-22, he gets absolutely obliterated by the GR7. Wasn't gonna go for him anyway, because we are being kind of contested. You noticed that I had the FRS and the J8 behind us. I'm not gonna contest them at the same time. This is not the plane for that, so instead I put the mountain in between us, I get some separation, and now I can start engaging them as they are occupied with my friendly in the F104. So I'm gonna be engaging the J8, he's gonna be top priority. The Su-17 I'm not really scared of, so I'm hoping that he doesn't see me through the mountain, and I start engaging the J8. But I noticed that the F4 is actually pulling into the head-on. Probably could have taken it, but I'd rather be safe than sorry. So we disengage, we turn around, and the J8 is now actually pretty slow. So I'm locking him up, and you can tell that he's pre-flaring, so my missile seeker actually goes through the flares. I'm just holding fire, and I snuck it in between the flare pops, and once it's in the air, guess what? He is going to be dead. I didn't even have to look at him anymore, because I knew that was going to hit. Why? Because the J8 flare pops go down and to the sides, which is an absolutely horrible flare pattern for anything that has IRCCM. And that's why I was 100% sure that the missile was going to hit. And if it hadn't, he had to dodge in such a manner that it would have lost so much speed that he would have been dead to someone else. Instead, I fly towards the other side of the map and now try to finish off the FRS that's again occupied with someone else with a singular DEFA. Or Aiden. I don't know what this one is called, they're the same gun, it really doesn't matter. The issue is you only have one of them, and it just really doesn't do anything. Now sure, we take his wing off, but with the severe damage mechanic, you are gonna get a lot of your kills stolen with this thing. Now we run into the F104 that we kinda saved the previous game, and we latch onto his ass. Now he is pre-flaring, he is running the flares reinforced, but because we have the ability to shoot at him as he is basically running periodical, I can again sneak it in between, and because we come from a little bit of an angle from above, the missile doesn't see the flares. You have to keep in mind that flares don't have a rise time, and the rise time is the mechanic of the flares slowly heating up. Now I say slowly, it's like half a second or a second, but the flares don't run at their optimal temperature instantly, so if you come from an off angle, by the time the flares are heated up, well, they're not in the seeker anymore, and the missile is going to hit. This time, however, I'm directly behind the F104, I shoot the missile off, I shoot it in between, he flares, and the flares are in between the engine and my missile seeker, which means that by the time I shoot the missile, he flares, the flares have plenty of time to heat up, and the second this seeker does see the flare, the missile is gone. It's not an AIM-9M that kind of just goes on proportional navigation and keeps flying directly towards the target. That is not the kind of missile this is. It's totally just wavelengths, FOVs, all to combat the ability to see the flare, whereas an AIM-9M just kind of shuts the seeker off and then goes on proportional navigation. an A9M would have hit that F104 100%, because, well, he didn't change direction, and the missile just kind of keeps flying until it just doesn't see flares anymore and reacquires the guy that you are shooting at. Now the Su-22 here, I want to say my apologies to the F5. I thought it was severely damaged, so I thought I'm gonna get a sneaky assist and a finish off in, but no, I end up just completely stealing the thing. Terribly sorry, this mechanic is absolutely dog shit, but I should have checked the battle log. That is completely on me, but still the mechanic is not something I'm a massive fan of, because very often you crit someone or you just completely tear the plane apart and it just gives you a crit and it doesn't even give you the severe damage, and then it just gets stolen. It happens all the time. I'm not a big fan of it. It does have a lot of potential, but I just do think that if you crit someone, you should be eligible for the full kill already if someone else finishes it off. I'm not completely against the severe damage mechanic, but I do think that the guy that crits first should still get the kill. But you know, that's a topic for another time. Watch me have terrible aim and then just send this guy to the Shadow Realm. What about down tiers? I can hear you ask it. Well, in reality, it's just a better GR1A because of the magic tools, but the gun just really hinders it. Very often you'll just get hits, crits, and it just doesn't really finish anyone off, but the magic tools make it so that if you get within range and you know a plane is at a certain distance and angle, just like that A5C, he could have dropped all his flares right there, but because the flares dropped downwards, that missile would have hit anyway, so it doesn't really matter what they do. So at these down tiers, especially against planes with limited amount of flares, or simply just a limited amount of knowledge, which I can't blame them for, this is not a jab at these people, you essentially just have 2 free kills. Now we have a lemon over here, a woohing, so somebody called Playsack, he got out of his cage, but he's gonna use his terrain to his advantage. I'm keeping eyes on that A10 on the right, which is why I'm pre-flaring right now, but I have no ability to sneak my rounds in. I shoot a little bit too high. Now I do kill little Timmy that's watching behind the window, looking at all these cool planes flying over. Unfortunately, I don't get any credit for that. I keep my turn up here to get distance, bleed him off speed, and then disengage while I can. I do overdo it a little bit too much and we lose control. Luckily he didn't shoot an A9 Elidus and we managed to get away scot-free. A5 flying over, I do want to engage him, but he doesn't want that to happen. I'm going only 0.77 Mach, he's going Mach, and he just kind of disengages and flies away. I'm thinking about shooting a magic at him, but by the time I get my nose on, he's about 2 kilometers away. He's way too fast, I'm not fast enough. That missile is never going to be reaching, so instead I'm just gonna let him fly off into the sunset. That is obviously a fucking lie. We are gonna not let him fly back to the sunset. Instead we are going to completely energy trap him, and I'm gonna give you a textbook example of an energy trap. So we are behind this guy, he's trying to stay low to be underneath us, because being underneath someone in the merge actually gives you a severe advantage, but the damage he sustained was also pretty severe, so now he is gonna be even slower. Now we have about 3 billion kilocalories here stored in our balls, so we just go up, we loop on over, and we turn on the CCIP to give us a bit of an indication where to Epstein him in the back of his head. We do exactly that, and we go to the next guy. Now we have this F4C here, and I'm thinking about sparing my missile so that I can use it on the A5 that is on the other side of the map. So I cut off the F4C, and this guy is just really not paying attention. He's shooting a missile at the Su-25. I get directly behind him, and this is the pain of this gun. I keep some hits in, I missed the second burst completely. I'm thinking about it. I'm trying to see if he's gaining any distance. He is not, he's actually maneuvering. I start catching him, which means that I'm not gonna be firing this missile off. I'm instead just gonna shoot at him. He probably thinks I'm out of ammo, he just stops maneuvering, and that's it. And then we lose on tickets. I never get to use the missile on the A5C. It's probably one of the most tragic moments in history. Watch Mojo should make a top 10 out of it. Thank you all for watching. You'll see me all in the next one.